dragon claw, wing and scale. Come now, let's examine a tale of the greatest beast ever considered. Another episode of Big Flying Lizards.
Welcome to Big Flying Lizards, a dragon movie and television podcast. I am your host, Bryce Wilson, once again joined in this adventure of thrones by Chayce Hernandez. Chayce,
Right.
how are we doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm reaching for a water because I've been eating Starburst.
Well, I can see you now, so you can't be hiding from me or anything.
Oh, you. How are you?
Oh, I am Gucci. I am in the process of planning out a fashion show. I'm in the process of planning a toga party. I'm in the process of planning out a book fair. You know, I'm just be planning all sorts of stuff.
Absolutely. You are planning everything right now. Are you planning anything for Trump?
Well, you know,
Top secret. Top
welcome to Big
secret.
Flying Lizards. Just kidding.
Gosh.
There's this place called Alligator Alcatraz that he told me to plan a welcome party at. I don't know why.
Yeah, my cousin just went there. He said it was fun.
He said, this guy, he likes lizards, he likes dragons. Maybe he'll like the alligators. I think he loves the alligators. Let me tell you, he loves gators.
Dragon review on Alligator Alcatraz.
I'm going to hell.
Yeah, we're off to a terrible start.
Well, speaking of off to a terrible start, I think we can only go up from here.
I think that's a great segue into these episodes.
That is true, because we are going into episodes 7 and 8 this week. And if it's all right with you, let's just dive into episode 7.
Let's get right into it. This is a meaty episode.
This is a meaty episode. Episode 7, you win or you die. Ned Stark confronts Cersei, telling her he knows her children are Jaime's bastards. Before Ned can tell Robert, the king is mortally wounded by a boar while hunting, due to Lannister wine making him drunk. On his deathbed, Robert signs a decree naming Ned Protector of the Realm until Joffrey becomes of age. Ned changes it to rightful heir. Ned sends word to Stannis Baratheon, the true heir, and asks Littlefinger to secure the City Watch's loyalty. After Robert dies, Ned presents a decree in the throne room, but Littlefinger betrays him and the City Watch turns on Ned. At the Wall, Benjen Stark is still missing beyond the Wall. However, Jon and Sam are assigned as stewards. Jon becomes Lord Commander's Mormont's personal steward. Jon is disappointed until Sam suggests Mormont is grooming him for leadership. The new recruits swear their oaths to the Night's Watch and discover frozen corpses. In Essos, Ser Jorah foils an assassination attempt sent by Robert to poison Daenerys. Khal Drogo, enraged of what had occurred, vows to invade Westeros for his unborn son. The Dothraki begin their march towards the Seven Kingdoms. Like you said, thick episode. A lot happens. But, you know, I think there's only one place that we can really start with this particular episode, and that's where we get our first sight on the man, the myth, the legend himself, Tywin Lannister. Because the episode actually opens up with Tywin and Jaime talking to each other and having a conversation. And I think that this conversation is very significant in a lot of different ways. Namely, we meet Tywin, arguably the most powerful lord in the Seven Kingdoms, easily the wealthiest lord in the Seven Kingdoms, but one of the most powerful. And what is he doing? He's skinning an elk. Like, this motherfucker is sitting there just skinning an elk, and not only skinning it, but doing a great job. And I think that this is sort of like trying to show us the stark differences between Robert Baratheon and Tywin Lannister. While Robert was definitely like, I want to go kill things, but he's not skinning the elk. He's not doing any of that. Tywin's over here, he probably hunted that elk. He's skinning it. He's taking care of it. And like, you get the sense that just reading into that this is a man, for once he starts something, he finishes through and he doesn't like take any shortcuts on. And it's also just significant because he's talking with Jaime about legacy, about family, and like the importance of what the family name will actually be, and like how he actually doesn't really care that much for his son Tyrion, but he's willing to go to war over legacy and how he'll be remembered, all while skinning an elk.
Yeah, it's such a good opening scene for what this episode turns into. Such a good scene. And once again, one of the best actors in this entire show.
Easily. Like everything that the actor does for Tywin, you can tell that he's just a ruthless, like, I don't want to say soulless, but like he's just sitting there, like everything's calculated, everything has purpose. And this is the man who sacked King's Landing and really turned on the last king because the king refused to marry his son to his daughter.
Yeah, it's such a, I don't know, this episode's got so much in it. Because we'll go from that scene. This whole episode to me is, once again, it comes down to the Stark family. And you really start to see Ned, like, his flaws, in a sense, come undone in this episode, in the sense of that man had no finesse. No finesse. And there's just a lot of awesome character play between the Spider and Littlefinger. Like, there's just so much with their characters here, where I think they kind of show you it's like chaotic neutral, chaotic good. And the games really unfold to me. You really have a good idea of what it is in this next 2 episodes.
For sure.
The game is very clear. And obviously in this episode game, you win or you die.
It's said in this episode. It's said in this episode. And I think it's very significant that there's so many points where you can point to in this episode that Ned could have still won. Like, he seriously could have still ended up on top at so many points during this episode. But it's just like watching this man just stumble and fall because of him wanting to do
Honor.
the merciful thing and the honorable thing. And just to, I think it's a good segue into actually just talking about this conversation between Ned and Cersei. And this is such a great scene. Like, it's a great scene in the book. It's a great scene in the show. And I think that both of them, both Sean Bean and Lena Headey, do such an amazing job of just portraying these two characters that are both ruthless and fighters in their own way, but also have pretty glaring character flaws that leads to their downfall. But Ned should have, like, there's so many points that Ned should have just seen. Like, would the Lannisters, like, we even know the Lannisters would not have offered the same level of grace to the Starks if the roles were reversed.
He just didn't, once again, I think I said this episode 1 of this. The Starks' goddamned honor is why you like them, and it's why they're kind of at the forefront of a lot of the storytelling. But holy shit. It's like watching, I was thinking about this as I was rewatching this episode. You ever watch like a horror movie and you're like, why are you doing that? Why are you heard a noise in the woods? Why are you going in the woods? That's what it's like watching Ned Stark the last half of the season. It's just like, why would you do that? Why would you confront? What are you doing? Why would you do that?
There's another point, and I'll bring it up once we get to it, but I there's a part of me that gets it. But like in this scene in particular, there was literally no reason for him to like give Cersei this chance. Now, I just want to call back because we were going back and forth a couple weeks ago on whether Robert knew that Cersei was cheating on him or not, which I still think that there's a possibility. Excuse me. I still think there's the possibility that he had an inkling or had an idea. But at the same time, I don't think, like, Ned says a line to Cersei that was like, leave now because Robert's wrath will follow you to the edge. And so, like, to me, that's giving sort of more proof that, like, maybe he had an inkling, but he had no idea that his children were, like, the people that he raised, which is ironic because during this episode, he says to Joffrey, I was never meant to be a father. So, like,
yeah, it is such an interesting point to think of, like, what he would have done, because if anything, he was a prideful king.
Yeah.
if any, at the end there. But it just, I don't know. My thing with Ned Stark, I'm like, how dumb are you to think that like Cersei is anybody in that entire family is going to be like, oh, you're giving me mercy, you're giving me a like. All he did was give her a head start in all of the worst ways.
Which it's so funny because like I mean, fantasy is really evolving in literature, but if you think about it, probably the two biggest fantasy worlds, well, Harry Potter is there, but for the sake of this conversation, we're going to set that aside over here. But two of the biggest worlds written by men is Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. And it's a whole big deal. Like it's almost a center part of the story about how they're like it's arguably one of the most famous conversations in the at least the first movie where Gandalf and Frodo are talking and Frodo is like it's a pity that Bilbo didn't kill Gollum when he had a chance because Gollum was chasing after them trying to get the ring. And that's when Gandalf goes on this whole speech of like who are you to determine when mercy needs to be shown like we don't like mercy. You need to show mercy to those because you never know when it's going to circle around. And then you have George R. R. Martin is like, show no mercy. Like to quote Epic the musical, ruthlessness is mercy upon yourself.
That's in the Game of Thrones. That's really how. And once again, we get so much of that in this episode
Yes.
because moving ourselves along now as he gets gored by the it's I don't know there's a it almost seems like Robert is suicidal to a certain extent,
For sure.
wanted to die. And I think that's also we could go back and forth of almost why he wanted Ned there because he literally just was like over it.
Yeah, I mean, all he wanted to do, like in the previous episode, one of my favorite lines that he says is, killing clears my head. And it's sort of like he gives me the sense of like a hunting dog that's being just chained in a backyard, never taken on walks, never given treats, like just sitting there being fed 3 meals a day. But like, you're a hunting dog at heart. Like, you let that boy run.
Well, I think that's why I mean he goes hunting a ton through this. And you kind of he says that, but yeah, that's I mean once again it's kind of interesting as we get through this first season again of like how the warriors that like they can't function in this society. You see that with him, with Ned, but you see these people that have never seen any war and they do really well. That's why you see Taiwan, not Tywin. Tywin's actually the only exception I feel like to this. He just is the overlord.
He is the deep state, ladies and gentlemen. He's running everything. He has his
I
hands
mean,
behind.
actually, yes, he was the deep state. He really was. Like it's like he
He's
shows up.
turning the
It's like, oh,
front scale,
Robert's
let me tell
dead.
you.
Yeah. Where was Tywin at before this?
So before that's the crazy thing. So before the Roberts Rebellion, he was the hand of the king.
Yeah.
But and he was setting up Cersei for years, trying to make it so Cersei would marry Rhaegar, who was heir to the throne. But the Mad King, like maybe he had a little more sense than we give him, but in a fit of fit of madness, he engaged Rhaegar to technically the smallest house all of Westeros that was a major house, and that was to the Martells, which again, we talked a few weeks back. We love Dorne. We love the Martells. However, the it'd be like the King of England marrying their child off to some teeny tiny kingdom
Yeah.
in Europe. And so Tywin took that as spite and rejected being hand of the king and went and lived at Castle Rock and refused to join the war until it was obvious Robert was going to win. And then he's the one who sacked King's Landing. It's his troops who killed the remainder of the Targaryens. And ever since then, he's just been at Castle Rock, sort of telling Cersei not necessarily telling Cersei what to do, but like just helping Cersei instruct on what to be doing. So when Robert dies, the Lannisters can take hold and hold on to power. Like this has been a legacy move that Tywin has been working on for decades now. He's wanted House Lannister at the top ever since he was a child, essentially. And this has been just like his step to get there.
And it's so interesting too with his character because he's not necessarily power hungry. You don't see him like want to be the king.
No,
If
but
anything, he
I
does it.
agree. Yeah, he's comfortable being the person in the background. He's comfortable pulling the strings behind, but also, and again, we'll see it in later seasons, Cersei will command him to do something and he'll just look at her like, who are you to tell me what to do? I'm your father.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, he doesn't seek power, but he seeks to oversee power. He wants to be the manager of Westeros. He doesn't want to be.
Yeah, that's the thing. He wants to be the king without being the king. And I think he knows that at some point. He knows that he runs it.
Well, I think he also knows that if he were to be the one to step in, the people would hate it because he's just so hated amongst the people. They view him as a butcher. They view him as just this warlord who is burned. And I mean, he has some of the most ruthless knights that are under him that show zero mercy and like go out of their way to like pillage and assault and just do as much horrific, like his logic at war is be as horrific as possible because it will break their spirits the soonest. And like when you read the books and you read the stuff that he's telling his soldiers to do, you're like he seems like he's evil in the show. Don't get me wrong, but in the books, like he's really just next level of like.
But it's like he's so keen evil. It's not even just like
Yes,
not Mad King. It's like the exact opposite of the Mad King. It's so calculated, so cold, but like very intelligent. But yeah, it's interesting seeing him being introduced, and then like you get to see. I don't know. There's a lot of scenes here that are really interesting to me with the kids. Like you have the girls, you have Rob, like you have John. Like there's a lot of things happening on the outskirts of this, but also that just don't mean a whole lot.
Yeah.
Obviously,
I mean, it's hard though because they're trying to copy the book. And these are the chapters where we're seeing the most from Catelyn. These are the chapters we're seeing the most from Ned. These are the chapters we're seeing the most from Tyrion. But the problem is also they don't want to go into so much detail. I'm excited to talk about the next episode because there's a whole storyline that gets like touched on, but not explored with Tyrion. That's just so much fun. I'd be upset if we didn't talk about arguably one of the most famous scenes for the wrong reason in a Game of Thrones. And that's when Littlefinger teaches his prostitutes how to like fake an orgasm. But like the entire time he's using it for a euphemism of him like getting ahead and like just fucking everybody over. It's definitely the scene that your mom walks in on when you're watching the show. Like,
yeah.
No, I swear.
Yeah. That's
because it's like a 7-minute long scene.
No, it
just keeps going.
Ton of screen time for that. And it's so interesting because that really might be the most screen time he gets for a long time.
Yeah, because otherwise it's just bits and clips.
Is that the same scene? I don't think it is. But Littlefinger's just got such. But there's like the scene where like there's like a person that like is mad because their woman or something got taken, and some of the girls like got cum on her face, and he goes and like wipes it, and then like sends her in.
I think that's later on in the show, but it's the same sort of vibe. Like it's just like
always just debauchery in that whorehouse. Debauchery.
Well, like something that I found out, and it makes total sense, but like it was one of those things I was like, wow, that's shocking, but also like I applaud HBO for doing this. They actually hired real porn stars for all of the prostitutes just because they knew that they're sex experts and they know what they're doing. Nana, what a great time to jump into the conversation when we're talking about the scene in Game of Thrones. So enjoy us talking about how HBO is sex work positive over here.
That's just fucking hilarious. I forget what we were talking about, but yes. Yeah, that scene, it would be, it's his character is so, you just hate him because you know he's up to something, which is kind of the opposite of how you feel about the Spider, where it's just like, Mercy, it's like, what is your angle? And in the next episode, we really get his angle, which is interesting because I feel like these 2 episodes in particular, those 2 really do show their cards. Yes. Littlefinger what he's really going for versus him, and like just where they end up playing in this big scheme of all of the games.
Which is funny because I want to have this conversation with you, and I think it's a good time to have it. When Ned rejects Renly, because Renly is like, hey, get me 100 troops and you can install me as king. And Ned's like, no, Stannis needs to be king. And so they go, and he brings in Littlefinger. And what does Littlefinger tell him to do? Littlefinger tells him to go along with the Lannisters. He's like, hey, just go along with the show, be the king regent, be the protector of the realm, and if you don't like him, overthrow him. But use this time to take out Stannis, and then we can install Renly as king. So to me, he's trying to like almost give Ned an out. It's not even like he's like trying to flat out like, because if he was, and that's the part where I'm just like, okay, did he really want to work with the Lannisters, or was working with the Lannisters like his final resolve? Because it's almost like he was giving Ned that like, hey, let's do this. Or do you think that he was more just using that as a smokescreen to like hide the fact that he's planning on betraying him?
I think the biggest thing I think it was a mixture of things, but I think with Littlefinger, it's realistically for him, it was always about how can he get the closest to power. And I think he almost always has two plans. It's like back the power that be and earn even more trust and favor, or overthrow, and in the overthrowing reshuffle myself even higher. And I think over the course of the whole entire show, we see him do that, either of those, a couple times. But I think Ned just gave him no other choice. It was like, okay, like, I think, not even think, in all of multiple parts of this, everybody goes, yeah, getting the Lannisters out of here would be good for the realm. Like, everyone believes that, but nobody's willing to really go at them because you know what it takes. Everyone has to work together, and nobody can work together, so everyone just ends up staying.
Well, I think that like, again, like I don't like Stannis in the show just because of like a lot of the stuff he does later on. But I love Stannis in the books, and it's just so hard but I also just have to admit, Stannis would not be a good king. Like he would try to be like, he's essentially like the evangelical Christian version of like putting in a leader after there. So like, it doesn't make sense to make him he wanted to outlaw brothels when he became king. Like that was something that was on his agenda. So like
He definitely, he would have been just such a power. He would have been like Robert, but Christian.
yes, he really would have. And I hate to bring it up now because it's such a good scene, and I want to give it its dues when it comes in season 3. I think it's in season 4. But anyways, when Littlefinger is talking about chaos being a ladder and not a pit, I think that's just his character in general. How he's talking about like chaos is not a pit, it's a ladder, because if you play it right, you can use the chaos to get ahead of everyone else. However, one misstep and you're falling and you're breaking your back and it's done. And I think Littlefinger is one of those people that like he just wants to cause the most chaos because he knows in chaotic situations no one pays attention to him and he's able to thrive and just get higher and higher and higher.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of his moves have been made in chaos, which we won't get into yet. But he makes some very bold moves in the midst of chaos. But yeah, I think it's just this episode especially sets up the next one because there's so much between all of that, and once again, we're heading to a pretty good head here.
That we are. But before we get ahead of ourselves, I think it's only fair to be highlighting what Nana has been saying in the chat.
Absolutely.
Ned Stark refused to twink Renly, and look what happened to him. Don't refuse the twinks.
But look what happened with Twink in charge.
Twink in charge gets stabbed in the back by his brother. Spoiler alert.
Bottom Twink never switched Twink. Okay, deal.
Ned also said Renly would have been the best king. I don't know. Like, out of the ones that were fighting for the Iron Throne, I agree. But I also think that Robb would have, and I know I'm biased, but I think
Hey,
Rob would have
I
been the best
agree.
king.
I think Renly was good, but he didn't want it. You know what I mean? Like he did, but like I just see he just comes across so like it's almost like this is the best way to put it. He was everything has led him to being in power, and so he's very well like rehearsed and like all of the stuff. Like everything looks good. He knows how to talk. He knows how to politic. But it just seems like those good intentions weren't necessarily like. But with Rob, it's like Rob's going to be doing. I don't know. It just seemed like Renly. It was like a rich kid set up to take over a company. So it's like, let's say for example,
Yeah.
you had a brake company and they were making these really good brakes, and your father passed, and then instead of giving the company to you because you were a burnout, they were going to sell it off, and instead you go on a 6-month selling spree of brake pads, and then you show up on the day and the whole company backs you, and then you get the company back, right?
I am so impressed on how you're able to just completely spin hypothetical situations all in your own mind without it being inspired by.
You don't know what that you don't know what that's from?
I know what it's from.
Do you? Do you?
It's not Tommy Boy.
It is Tommy Boy.
I blanked on what the title was.
Yeah, it was.
Hello, David. I appreciate you stopping in to say hi. But one last thing that I want to highlight that Nana said that I think is completely true. Without him, Tywin, the Lannisters are a joke. And I really think, here's the thing, if the kids were willing to get along, they could have been a powerhouse. If Cersei was willing to not be so bigoted,
Her and Jamie got along really good.
Sorry, Tyrion. Yeah, him and Tyrion and Jamie love each other. Like Jamie truly, and you don't even realize it compared to the books. In the books, Jamie is so defensive of his brother. He is obsessed with his brother, and I think it's one of those things where he was just so desperate to have a brother after having a twin sister that even like having Tyrion was just so, and like it was somebody he could joke around with. He couldn't really joke around with Cersei. So I'm sure the two of them really bonded over humor, and especially just how they were expected to have such the weight of the Lannister legacy. And
I think Cersei was the real problem here, and I think Tywin's why. He put all of that in her.
Well, not only that, what I'm a firm believer of is that it's because Tywin spoiled her as a child. Spoiled her, but still also neglected her. Like, technically, you could say he spoiled Jamie as well, but Jamie was at least forced to learn to fight. He was forced to be a soldier. So that built a form of discipline. Like, yeah, he was still an asshole, but he at least dedicated himself to something. Cersei didn't dedicate herself to anything. Like, you don't really, and again, I know it's the sign of those times. Like, women were supposed to just be essentially married off for political gain, but
Well, especially her, she knew that she was being bred to be a queen.
yes,
That was her whole thing. She was being combed to be a queen, a princess. So, like, I know plenty of children that were terrible that were never combed to be princesses who thought they were.
I know so many as well. I do also just want to say that probably the moment, and again, I get Ned sees sees Robert, who he essentially is called his brother, and he should have just told Robert. Like, I know it's his deathbed. I know that, but he should have just said, Robert, Joffrey is not your son. And Robert would have called the King's Guard in and said, get him out. Get them out. Off with their heads.
Well, that's the problem with the Stark and Ned in particular. He goes from what's right to what's like, he finds that line of like, did he do like technically like the right thing by Robert by not telling him and letting him go to death, like, dying, thinking whatever. But he didn't do the actual right thing, which was telling him
Here's the thing, he did the right thing for his friend and individual, but how many people had to die because of that? Like, think about all the millions of people that, like, the tens of thousands, the hundreds of thousands of people throughout the duration of the show who end up dying because excuse me, because he doesn't tell Robert about this. And so, I mean, like, I get it. Like, he did the right thing on an individual level, but like on a bigger picture level, did he do the right thing? No.
Which is Ned over and over and over.
But in this scene, before like Robert sends Ned out, you can see on Cersei's face that she was genuinely scared that Ned was going to tell her. Like, she kept looking, and like you can even just see that there's a level of just concern on there. But real quick, Nana's saying, Woody, though, if Robert did that round the Kingsguard and get them out, he'd have to admit that he was wrong. I don't think Robert can admit that he was wrong. I see where you're coming from, Nana, but we also have to remember that Robert is like drugged up right now, and I think he is like, he hates Cersei. He doesn't care about Cersei. And like, to spit in the, like, he's always talking about how he wants to spit in the face of Tywin and spit in the face of the Lannisters. So I have a feeling he would actually love for his last act as king to just kill off the Lannister line over here.
Yeah, and I think it goes back down to the point of like Robert's wrath. I think that he was a warrior. I think for him that would have been like, I'm with you. I think he would have loved to have been like, all right, Ned, you're the hand of the king. Boom, 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 dead. Like, I actually think outside that would have been even better than what Ned did. I think he goes to guys happier.
I think so, but again, he just wanted to give his friend peace, which God bless him over there. I know we're getting a little past our half. I want to move on to the next episode, but there's a couple points that I want to bring up real quick. There's one character in particular that I'm so angry that they butchered his character, because in the books, he's so much more of a jovial character, so much more fun of a character. He is more of a side character in the show, which I get, but his name's Pip. And he's at the Night's Watch. He's one of the brothers in the Night's Watch. And he's always cracking jokes. And he's always like making fun of people and just sort of the beating heart of the Night's Watch over there. But in the show, like, he's just as dour and as like depressed as everybody else up at the wall. And I'm just like, how hard would it be to like, you could even just copy and paste the jokes that are in the book. Like, you don't have to like get a comedian actor over. So that's something that I am like poo-pooing over on the show, you might say.
Yeah, I think they just needed to keep the Night's Watch depressing.
That is true. Like, there is a level of just needing to keep that there. With how the show ends up going, it doesn't make any sense, but there's something that I really don't understand, like how they do it here in the show. Why did Varys not warn Ned that Littlefinger betrayed him? Because you know he knew. There's no way that that Varys knew that he was going to get betrayed.
What? And I think that had the next episode in a really good way, because I really think both of those men knew exactly who Ned was, which was just like a sinking ship.
Yeah. They just knew that he was too honorable to control and manipulate.
Yep. And that's it.
Yeah. There's so much in this episode, and I really am trying.
You're fine.
When Drogo finds out about the guy found out about the guy who tried to kill Daenerys, his speech where he promises the 7 kingdoms, that's probably the best acting I've seen. Like, I don't even think it's acting though, because it really, like, if you watch his movements and watch how he screams, it almost seems like he's doing the haka?
Mm-hmm.
Like the Polynesian war dance. The way he's like going around and screaming and like moving around, it almost seems like he's doing the haka.
Which is your interesting point. But honestly, I don't think he's ever acted as good as he did in Game of Thrones.
No. Well, have you not seen the Minecraft movie over here, Chayce? Have you not seen the Minecraft movie?
That was enough.
But no, in this episode in particular, because we were talking about how we were complaining about not getting a lot of dialogue, but him and Daenerys actually were having like full-on conversations in this, and there were like some tender moments when he was like correcting her on words in Dothraki, and it was just so awesome to be able to see him develop as a character, even though there's only a couple episodes left that he's in.
Yeah, they really do make you like.
Yeah. Especially, again, like, it's just so weird they decided to go in the direction that they did with the first episode.
Yeah, that point really does get driven further the further in you get to the show of like, why did you do that? Even though it's not in the show.
Yeah. I mean, like, again, there's somebody who commented that they had an actual vision of where they wanted to take it and they just weren't given that chance. And I'd love to see that, but we don't get to see it. But Chase, if it's all right with you, I would love to jump into nope, wrong one, wrong side. Jump in. I have too much paper here. Jump into the next episode.
Good. Let's do it.
All right. There he is. There's chicken. Or is that's Mac, not chicken. Mac, and it's gone. All right, episode 8, The Pointy End. In King's Landing, Arya escapes the Red Keep when Syrio Forel fights the Lannister guard with his fate seeming unknown. Sansa is captured by the Lannisters, specifically the Hound. Joffrey appoints Tywin Lannister as the new Hand of the King. Sansa begs Joffrey to spare Ned's life. He agrees if Ned publicly confesses to treason and recognizes Joffrey as king. Robb rallies the northern armies against the Lannisters, leaving Bran in charge of Winterfell. Catelyn travels to the Riverlands, but Lysa Arryn refused to join the fight. White's reanimated corpse attack the Night's Watch, and Jon saves Lord Commander Mormont by killing the White with fire. Tyrion and Bronn are captured by Shagga, leader of the Stone Crows. Tyrion negotiates safe passage to Tywin's war camp, promising payment. Tywin recruits the mountain clans to fight the Starks. Drogo's Khalasar raids villages, enslaving people to fund for ships to cross the narrow sea. Drogo is wounded in the battle, setting up for future complications. Just watching this, how that creature is filled with so much hate, so much anger.
As he's falling asleep.
Yes.
Richmond.
The scene was just so brutal when it was doing like the cutscenes of Arya training with Syrio Forel, and you're just watching all the household of the Starks get just murdered and massacred, and it's just brutal watching all of them get murdered. I mean, it was brutal in the last episode when they got turned on and like just getting skewered by the gold cloaks, and then the Hound comes over and just starts chopping people in half, and like it's brutal. People be dying.
Yeah, this episode really just sets the cloud that you sit with for the next 4 to 5 seasons, and really begins to set the tone that is the first season. And also just fucking hate Joffrey so bad. So
Yeah.
and he does
He does such a good job as playing pompous and playing as an asshole. He really does. And like, especially when he's like in there at court and the way he's just leaning on the Iron Throne, which, I can't complain because I sit like that every day at work. So like, who am I to judge over there? Oh, don't worry, Nana. We're gonna go ahead and talk about how Drogo was felled by the swipe of a nipple, because in the books it's actually like, it's not a cut on his chest, like legitimately his entire nipple gets cut off during a fight. So, and it's literally just like dangling there, and
that's interesting. Look there. Yeah, this is there's so much that happens in this episode, and I really come back down to like the in between play. Like you have the big moves, and this episode happens really fast. Like this one doesn't feel like the full 60-minute film time. It really happens super fast between Joffrey going in, immediately putting those people in place, Ned immediately being like, thrown into custody, and once again, the beginning of my hatred, not full-blown hatred, but disdain for Sansa really starts to come alive in this episode. Because it's just like, she just whine, I don't know, just that, and her and Joffrey, it's just like, she goes through it in this episode and in the next. But you just kind of see her, like, not handle things well and make things worse. Yeah, you see, like, Arya kind of run, and that happens, and her, I don't know, it's just the way that the Starks handled all of this is kind of frustrating, because it's like, you should have saw this coming. How are you so woefully unprepared, Ned? And then
So
Ned's
I
still
want
just like, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Go ahead and
Yeah.
finish the thought, and I'll.
The biggest thing I really is annoying with Ned is Ned really just keeps acting like everybody's just going to realize that he's correct. And that's just how he goes about it.
Yes, and uh, I don't think that anyone could have said it better. Like Ned is literally just like the actually sitting there like, but I also do get the sense while he's in the black cells, he's sort of just resigned his fate. He's like, you know what? Like I I thought I did what I thought was right. I played it wrong. I'm gonna die now. And that's sort of like resigns his fate to that. But going back to what you were saying with Sansa, and I want to almost like pose this as like a question because oftentimes there's a lot of characters that are hated in TV shows. The more and more I dissect this, I really think that this is the case with Sansa. I don't think that people hate her necessarily because like they hate her for what she's doing, but not necessarily because of the way we think. I think that the people that really hate what she's doing is because a lot of people they want to when they watch something they want to see the heroic side of things, and they also just want to see like I mean, how many times have you fantasized about being in one of your favorite movies and being the one who saves the day and just all of those? And it just fills you with this level of just euphoria, you might say. However, with characters like Sansa, I think that there's a lot of like you see yourself doing what Sansa, not you in particular, but people in general see themselves doing what Sansa does in these episodes or make mistakes very similar to what Sansa does. And rather than like address that, they just like, oh, I hate that. I hate that Sansa's that way. But in reality, you're like viewing yourself like, hey, I probably would just like play it cool with the people that betrayed my family. I'd probably like
It's
just
not
throw
that.
my family under the bus.
My real problem with her is long term in a sense of like, I just think her character arc is overrated and hyped, and she's really just not that helpful. She's useless the entire show. And so my disdain comes,
Until she's not.
and even then, one time out of 8 seasons, and there's a lot,
It
like,
was very important one time.
I don't know, it would have been great. That it was great television either way. It was great television either way. But that's the point. But yes, she has her moment, yada yada. But like, yeah, her character here is it's obviously like a teenage. All of it makes sense. It's played pretty accurately, which is part of like the painful part of this.
Yes. I think it's just especially hard because, like you said, we see Arya, and Arya just has this willful spirit and is like willing to be a badass. And we want Sansa to be like that, but that's just not who Sansa is.
Not at all. No, and she just doesn't even pick up any of it. But yeah, there's a lot of shit that happens here, and I think once again, my most important part of this episode for me is Littlefinger and Spider is their play here, and you see how they're talking to Ned, all of the games that they're playing, and Cersei included, the conversations they're having. You just start to see like the shit.
Yes, you see how the sausage is made, but you also get a little peek of their long term plans on what they're trying to do.
Yes, absolutely.
There's one character I just forgot how much I hated them until watching this again. And I know I mentioned it last time, but LYSA ARRYN, Catelyn's sister, oh my god, like I hate because Catelyn comes up and she's like, "You knew that Ned was captured and arrested and you didn't tell me?" And she's like, "Well, what am I to do? What am I to do?" And then she's like, well, are you going to rally your troops? And she's like, no, they're going to stay here. They're not going to go defend like, well, so you're just sitting there like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Why?
Yeah. Well, and this is kind of funny because in this episode, especially, you start to see, and I hadn't really noticed this till the second watch. Catelyn kind of has some of that in her, that crazy, that like irrationalness. And you start to, I really noticed it on the second go through where I was like, okay, like that character's really, she does a lot of decisions and like people just like give her this like noble notoriety, but like there's some stuff that she does that I'm like, that was just a dumb decision. And so I think you start to see her, first off, that's just crazy, that betrayal. But you start to kind of see like, oh, Ned is all you have. The Stark family name is really like where, other than you just being a beauty, really where your power comes from.
Well, and like, yes, I think it's especially shown. Like, you do see that where like Ned is her world, and like part of her dies when Ned dies. But especially in the books, she's such a shell of a woman. Like, she is not the same character after Ned dies. And all, like, pretty much her entire character is driven off of getting her daughters back and getting revenge. Like, that's all that she necessarily wants. And there's so much to that. And I think you're right, though. Like, you do see a little bit of that level of crazy from her. And I think it's so blatant with her sister.
Oh, her sister is absolutely batshit. Starting, you know, a character with her breastfeeding like a fucking 11-year-old is absolutely insane work. Insane
Well,
work.
especially because he tried. He was like, the part that I was dying is she's like, "Mommy, I'm thirsty. I'm hungry." And he like starts undoing her shirt. I'm like, cut it out. Nope, 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 nope. Stop
Me
that.
too.
Child Protective Services, we are calling you right now.
Yeah, crazy they filmed that. Crazy got the okay to film that.
I know. What HBO be doing? What is HBO doing? I just wanted to quickly mention it. It's not something we can really that we really should dive into. I'll bring it more up on the book club, which I'm going to put it on the schedule. Book club is Thursday. Thursday, we're doing the book club. Don't worry, guys. It's going to actually happen. I'm not just saying it. Thursday's the book club. So, anyways, when Tyrion comes to camp, he has all of the tribesmen with him. And those tribesmen, we only really see them in these like next couple episodes, and then they're gone. They're like with Tyrion and a big part of the series, like all the way. Like Shaga is a big part. Timot's a big part of the story, and like they're part of Tyrion's like elite bodyguards. And when he goes to King's Landing, people are terrified of him because he has these like tribesmen, like woodmen tribesmen that are just monster, and people view them as demons and monsters when he goes to King's Landing.
I wonder why that got cut.
So, I mean, again, budget. I
Fair.
don't know. I just have to also bring up one of probably the most badass kills I've seen in a show. And that's when Khal Drogo is fighting the guy that is like angry at Daenerys for taking away like his sex slaves, and he drops all of his armor, I mean all of his weapons, so he has no weapons. And then as the guy swings his sword, he grabs his wrist and has him cut his own throat with his own sword, and then he rips his lungs out and just throws the lungs on this pile of dead heads. Like, can we say a more cold kill than that?
Yeah, it's just unfortunate because really at this point you're like on their side. You're like, what a badass. And then,
Yeah.
Whatever.
Where does it? Nothing to come of it. Yeah, there's literally nothing that comes of it.
Yeah, I agree with you that he's probably, his character arc through this first season is one of the most fun to watch.
It really is. And again, it's just so sad to see it cut short. Is there anything else that you want to necessarily cover from this episode? I know that we really were
Time wise, yeah.
talking specifically about
I think
Varys and Littlefinger,
yeah,
but
the big things for me this, especially this episode, is you really start to see, once again, you mentioned it, Ned just absolutely kind of like just not care. Like you almost see him give up in a lot of ways and find some like inner peace in the caves. You really see stuff just start to go insane. But then you also get to see kind of the surgence of like Rob and him all of a sudden just kind of stepping up, having like the beginning of a character. You're like, oh, I didn't even really pay attention to him, and all of a sudden now you're really paying attention to him. And so you're seeing a lot of these things beginning in this episode, but they do such a good job of just making this whole entire episode. You're just kind of like, just the hammers coming down constantly around them.
yes. I do have to just also say, because it's just so, and again, the fact that we didn't even bring it up and cover it just shows how much the writers dropped the ball. There's dead men coming to life at the wall. There are people, like dead people, and that's supposed to be like the actual thing, like the actual big bad of the entire story, and we don't care because of where it ends up actually taking off. Like,
Yeah,
it's just,
that's
I
such
don't
a
want to
great.
say boring, but like,
The tools, they don't find the tools till the next episode, right? Because no, they killed it. They get
yeah,
chased by, and so like, yeah, I don't know. The Night's Watch has been forgotten even in the show.
exactly. Which is just, it's so sad because they had an opportunity. Because, like, when you're watching these episodes, they're like, yeah, like, zombies are essentially coming up. Ice zombies are coming to life. What's going on here? What's caused? I remembered, like, being in those and, like, getting excited. And then just nothing.
King's
Just a
Landing.
whole lot of shit. And I don't know why they went that direction.
Neither. There's a lot of things. I think they just first season they were really scrapping at the bit.
Yeah, they really wanted the Starks versus the Lannisters. Like, that's what they really wanted, but they were doing a good enough job of, like, just dripping us, getting us a little bit more excited. Like, oh, the big bad's coming. The big evil ice zombies are coming. And then just,
Yeah. No, they made their first season as if they were not sure if they were going to get, like, they were trying to get signed for the next.
which I think they got signed pretty quickly after that. Like, that
Yeah,
was,
they did accomplish, but I
we
do
talked
think,
about how the pilot,
yeah.
oh, go ahead.
No, I had nothing to say.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that we could only beat that horse for so long, which, again, it's just so sad that it ended up being that way. But it also, like you said, is building up for Jon to be like, because I think Jon's adventure beyond the wall is one of my favorite arcs
Oh,
in
thousand.
this series, both in season 2 and season 3.
No, I absolutely agree. I think that's one of the best
Especially just,
show.
but we'll have to wait tight for that. But if there isn't anything else that we want to mention, I know that Chase, you got to be bouncing, so I appreciate everybody for sticking out with us. We, guys, episode 9 next week. You're gonna wanna make sure to get ahead, just like Mac. But until then, like, share, subscribe, share it with your mom, share it with your man, share it with your dad, share it with your man, share it with your woman, share it with your cat,
share it with you, they, them.
Yeah, share it with the they them. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next time.
That's all for this week's Dragon Lore. Takes cold and hot, spread shore to shore. Enjoyed yourself? Please join the squad. Follow on social media at Big Liz Pod. And one quick reminder before you go, to rate, review, and share the show. Thank you for listening. It means a lot. See you next week, same time, same spot.